We're on. Have you done this once or twice?
This is my second time.
You know what you're doing?
This is my second time. Welcome. Come on. This is your second podcast, so...
It is my second podcast.
Right. We're both virgins.
Actually, I won't lie. Third podcast.
You went on some weird, like, gypsy tales?
Yeah, someone conjured me into that one, and then did a running one the other day, which is the first one. But no, I steer clear of the podcast for some reason. Generally around TV a bit more, right?
Oh.
It's all new. It's all new stuff. Not the real TV.
This is the new medium, mate. You got to get with this one. Yeah, might better hold your own.
Since this lockdown, though, I think podcasts have expanded. Like there's would be about 1,000 new ones on the Gold Coast, all reaching.
Oh, it must be. I did it before it was popular. Before COVID.
But this is number one.
This is number one. Yeah.
No, I've listened. It's sick. Like I said, I want to interview you. I'm not that interested in you interviewing me.
I don't lead much of an interesting life. I pretty much get up, go to work, and then not pay the bills. That's about as much as it gets. Has your stationary trainer had a bit of a hiding this lockdown?
Nah, mate. We're lucky here on the coast, right? And in Queensland, we've been out on the trails still, so we haven't locked down. So mountain biking, running, out here at Nerang, we've pretty much been going full time. I mean, even when it initially happened, there's like just being really careful to make sure you're doing. Like I do everything mostly solo anyway, but just making sure we're doing the right thing. But I mean,
can't imagine
it's kind of a job.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a job, and most people can't keep up. So
yeah, but it's a job. It's a job. Like it's the one. I mean, what was brilliant, and I think one of the main thing that's come out of this whole. We're going right.
We're on, mate.
We're on.
Start talking.
Oh, I don't want to waste my voice. No,
say something good.
Say something good, right? No, one of the best things out of this whole, the whole virus stuff and being locked down or whatever they want to call it is the fact that, exercise has boomed.
Yeah.
The forest is like crazy. It's never been so busy, and even just driving down the streets and that, and seeing families out on their bikes or people running. It's for me, coming from that background and being in fitness, and nowadays like coming from like I suppose an athlete background, but I exercise like most people these days for feeling fit and good and all that. It's just great to see so many people out exercising. Let's just hope it stays that way.
We went down a little while to the cafe, and like you see all the families walking there for once instead of calling in like a rush. It's like everyone's been forced to take a step back, get healthy, do something healthy for themselves. Because then if you're not really allowed to leave home, that walk that you're allowed to go and do becomes one of the most important parts of your day, or that run or that bike ride or whatever it is you're able to go and do
100%
during the day, and that's all you can do.
And then they realise they actually feel okay about doing it, right?
Yeah. The challenge will be when everyone goes back now, and then it becomes, you know how you always like, you start off everything with a hiss and a roar, and then like New Year's Eve resolutions. That's 100%. What this is. This is the New Year's. So the resolution is, I feel great when I go back to work. I'm getting into it. Then I think most of them have fallen over by the 5th of January. I think it's like a fact. Like most people are done with it. I know I am. I'm probably like the 4th or 3rd of January usually.
Yeah, the government probably had a hand in that, saying you still can't go out for another 6 weeks. So you have to continue.
When I spoke to you, I messaged you and said, hey, like the trail's open, because I saw you posting you were there. And then you said, yeah, just be careful. So it was actually me and Jace. We went down there Stouth the next day. It's like, we'll go for a bike ride, but we'll like, you go in first. And then we got there and the car park was packed with people sitting there hanging around talking. I thought, oh fuck, let's just go. Like, let's just act normal.
Yeah, I mean, most people were doing the right thing, right? Yeah. The trails never shut. That was the thing. I mean, it was all about not travelling for non-essential travel. So it was something we probably didn't advertise, that we were, going and running and riding, but the fact was we were doing it to exercise. And then a few weeks back, it was brilliant, because then I suppose Queensland government come out and said, look, go for it. National parks are one of the first things that's going to open. And we did some stuff for that. And then like the feedback we got around, I suppose you talk about people getting into exercising. Well, that's now transferring across to the fact they can travel a little bit. Yeah. And we're seeing now the forests are starting to get busy and that. Yeah. But I mean, it's catch-22, right? Because you want to keep the trails and nature and that kind of not overly run, or you want to make sure people are doing the right thing, not leaving the rubbish and all that crap around. But at the same time, you want people to enjoy them. That's what they're there for. So.
The counterpoint to a lot of that, though, is what's going to stop people getting sick is being healthy and fit.
Yeah, 100%.
So why would you not encourage people to probably be out there to do that sort of things,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, enough about the virus, eh? Let's talk about something more interesting. I've had 6 weeks of that.
I know. So anyway, I didn't get the virus, but about the virus, I'm not talking about it anymore. What did you miss out? You had a lot of travel, because you travel a fair bit, don't you? With your
Yeah.
Or should I say job? Am I allowed to say job?
Mate,
With your recreation, with your lifestyle?
with my lifestyle.
Your influencer lifestyle?
Oh, mate. I'm walking out
All
now.
right.
that was a,
Okay, that's the last
that
time
was
I
a
said
key
influencer.
word to go. Whoop.
Sorry. Is that your buzzword, is it?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Buzzword influences.
Yeah.
Yeah, travel. I mean, it affected us. But it's catch-22. It's great.
Yeah.
Like in one respect, we can't travel, but it's nice to be actually forced to stay at home and chill out a little bit. And I won't lie, like things haven't got any less busy. It's just got busier in a different way. I mean, once when people can't go out and things shut, then everyone like turns to digital, and suddenly you've got to pivot, and there's a whole range of stuff going on. All the different companies, whether it's outdoor companies or energy drink companies or whatever it is, everyone's suddenly got to go. We've got to change our whole plans, and it was like replanning for a whole year in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
it was actually quite crazy.
Yeah. So because what is it you do? Explain what you do. Can you put it into a sentence for the listeners who are not really sure? So you're an athlete, not an influencer.
I consider myself still an athlete first,
Yeah.
right? And everything I get to do stems from the fact that I had 20 years being a professional athlete. And I suppose having that maybe a bit of credibility behind that. And then that's just led to, when I say I don't have a job, I mean every day I have a different job. Because it's like provided all these different opportunities, from now I suppose unique filming opportunities to tourism opportunities to I work across a range of different outdoor companies. I still race, but every day is different. But if you go back to what where I began in all this, and this was pure sport. I mean, I was a triathlete, right? And I think the reason I was drawn to triathlon was it's 3 sports, so you never kind of get bored.
Yeah, right.
You're always doing something different, and my days now are no different in the sense that I'm always changing what I do every day. Like if you take this week for example, on Sunday I was out in the trails with my family. Monday morning I'm filming up like with Tourism Queensland at Lone Pine. I'm in a zoo filming other people. The next day we're what we're doing Tuesday, like I was in at Red Bull on Tuesday, talking to people about energy drinks, and then surfing every morning. Life just
nice.
every day is different.
Because I guess you don't have a job, but you're always working.
Always working.
Yeah. It's nice you can consider exercise work, though. That'd be nice to be able to say, look, because you have to be fit for your job, really, don't you?
100%. And that's what I think drives me to continue, in the spaces I work in. It all comes back to the fact that it allows me to keep doing, where I began and what I love. And that's, keeping fit to like a pretty high level. I still go out and race international, national trail level events, and go all right at them still.
Handy. How does that? I've often wondered how that works when it comes to like events, because I see a lot of like not just Red Bull athletes, but athletes in general that sort of are sponsored by different companies and things like that. Whether they see an event and they say, "Oh, I wouldn't mind having a crack at that," or whether that actual company, like Red Bull in this instance, say to you, "Hey, we really want you to go and do this. Are you fit enough? Do you reckon you can do it?" How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it changes every day. I mean, when I was racing around Olympic Games for triathlon and racing, just purely my income was around racing, and companies would support you because of performance. If you look at it that way. We were structured that you raced where you were told to race, and you had to race certain races to make teams or earn money. The beauty of once I finished up after, I suppose, the London Olympics and got into the, let's just call it more the outdoor endurance space, multi-sport space, whatever it is, that's where it got really interesting, because I suppose then I had a little bit of control over where I raced and what I did. And it was kind of went hand in hand. The fact that I was always looking for something new, something that maybe scared me a little or exciting or whatever it was. But where I say it goes hand in hand is the fact I was looking for that was companies were like on board with that, because it was, something different, I suppose, to, just going out and belting yourself around a race course for 2 hours. And then, you bring content into that, and, how the world's kind of moved that way with, people wanting to see, and I don't know what you want to call it, whether it's inspiration or just interest, but that's kind of then led me down this whole other pathway of doing, if you said to me, how do I choose an event these days? It's either history of events has a little bit to do with it, or something I've always wanted to do. And there's certain international events.
Bucket list one, like a bucket list
yeah,
style?
100%. Like Escape from Alcatraz triathlon was always a bucket list one for me.
What's that? Is that an actual Alcatraz?
Like actual Alcatraz.
There's sharks in the water?
Well, this is where this story is.
All right, shoot. Tell me.
I've got a first story. So Alcatraz triathlon, it's limited to 2,000 people. They take you out on a ferry.
Yeah.
You start 100 meters off Alcatraz Island, and you just got to swim straight back to shore. So I think it's about 2 mile, give or take, swim.
That's a decent swim for a triathlon, isn't it?
It's a bigger swim than usual triathlons compared to the bike and run legs. So it's not your typical triathlon where it's like these are the set distances and you're racing your time. It's a historic event. It's been going for a long time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of history involved in the States, but the main thing is you escape from Alcatraz. You literally have to swim across the channel, and the race spreads out and everything. And the year I went, they told us about the fact that, like, I was concerned about the sharks a little bit, and there was this weird story going on that, because of the water's really cold, like I think it's about 10, 11 degrees to swim in, and they were saying something about the sharks staying at a certain depth, or I think that was making you feel good, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, race went on.
Except when they're in attack mode, and then they come anywhere they want.
Well, about 6 months later, I'm watching YouTube.
Yeah.
That same, the ferry that goes out to Alcatraz every day, someone with their iPhone's taken, there's seals in the water, and a great white picks it up out of the water, dumps it down.
Out of the cold zone.
Mate, about 5 meters from the ferry, and I said, thank God I went last year, because you'd be thinking twice.
Yeah, you don't want it. Yeah, it's not.
But events like that. This year, I mean, my latest, I suppose, bucket list event was there's this trail race in Spain called Zagama. And the reason I knew about this one was purely about the crowds. So you run a marathon but within the marathon, it goes 5,000 meters vertical.
Yeah.
So it's like quite mountainous, hilly course. But on all of these mountain passes, the way it runs in this area of Spain, there's a lot of little villages, and each mountain section, kind of like, think of the Tour de France of trail running. So you're in the middle of nowhere on a mountain, and it's packed with people the whole way up to the peak. And you run through like a chute. So you do this probably like 4 or 5 times during this marathon, and I saw it, and I said, I always want to do it. So that was, one we kicked off last year. Yeah, so there's always interesting things.
That'd be intense, wouldn't it, with all the parting the seas, isn't it, as they go through? Some of those guys get close in the Tour de France.
Right, well, this one's like, because you're running and obviously not on bikes either, it's literally like they're just parting in front of you. But the whole, for me, the whole kind of notion of that is normally when you're running, like it's a pretty solo, trail running especially, it's a solo sport. You normally see, next to no one on a race course, especially if you're trying to win the race because you're out front, or you might only see 1 or 2 guys.
I'd have to believe you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that how it goes? Yeah. Okay.
Am I starting to sound like that guy?
Yeah. No, I just haven't been there before. I just have to believe you. Oh yeah, I assume it's lonely.
Mate, it's lonely, right? Unless you really want to do it, you don't do it. But in this case, you've always got someone around you, and it kind of took me. The reason I suppose I was drawn to that one with crowds is it kind of took me back to what I used to get around maybe Olympic Games type things where you did have proper crowds. And I won't lie, as a competitor, that's the one thing I miss. Is one, that real top end competition, but 2 is crowds.
Oh, well, you look at like things like Go to State of Origin. Have you been to one of them live?
Yeah.
Imagine like performing in front of a crowd like that. How could you not be pumped up?
Yeah.
So like that must just be so intense. Like I've never been in a crowd like I've been to State of Origin, never performed in front of a crowd like that. That must just that's got to give you an extra sort of 10% to boost as you go. When you're feeling tired, you come into the crowd. I would assume so in a triathlon sense anyway.
Yeah, I mean, tries were an interesting one because it's either one or the other. Ironman, like extreme distance triathlons are much like trail running. You see bugger all people out on the course, and it's a real solo pursuit. And it was something, I suppose, like ultra triathlons, like Ironman and that type of thing. I never really took to them for that reason, I think. I always loved the sprint, the shorter distance triathlons, because there was a race in it, but also you always were looping, especially in the international events and Olympics and that type of thing. You always were coming around multiple times. You had a crowd, and there was always something going on to think about. The extreme of that was London Olympics. I think they're saying about 500,000 people on the course at Hyde Park. Yeah, and I mean that was a unique event in the sense, or like a one-off event in the sport of triathlon, in the fact that there was two Brits who were the favourites, like national favourites.
Is that the Brownlee
brothers? Yeah, so they were literally, half the country had come out to see them.
Yeah.
It's a free event at the Olympics. It's in Hyde Park, easily accessible, and it was just nuts. And then obviously they won as well. One of them won. And
how often do you get to go through the Hyde Park like that? Like it's only a tourist until they shut it down for an event such as that.
Yeah, it's probably not something you're thinking about while you're racing, to be honest.
That's okay. You're not taking it in.
Right. That day, because we we rode down around the roundabout of Buckingham Palace, and when you're racing the games, mate, they could have rode us around the roundabout of Rabina. It could have been the same. Yeah,
it's more for the footage than anything.
Yeah, 100%.
You don't even think about it.
Yeah,
but I guess that's a cool thing. All those bucket list items that you get to, you get an opportunity to be able to go and do those things, like the Alcatraz one, and then what was it? Spain, was it?
Yeah, Spain
and then also you did the 7 of the highest climbs. I'm trying to think now. You'll be able to help me.
Yeah,
climb the highest thing. Was that something like another thing you thought one day I'm going to do that? But then when you're in a pursuit like triathlon where you're so intense and you got your race schedule, were you like banking these things that you thought, when I stop all this stuff, when I'm so intensely involved in this, I'm going to start ticking off these items as I go?
Not really, to be honest, because when...
there goes that theory. Okay.
Nah, sorry. I'll pivot on that one.
I know. Please talk more about it. Because the whole time, you know what I mean, though.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You're thinking, like, once this finishes,
because it's such an intense pursuit. Like, you literally have tunnel vision. You can't
that's
think
the
about
problem.
other things.
You have tunnel vision.
Yeah.
So life is in that, at least for me, in that aspect of life as an athlete, mate, you thought you're in this bubble.
Yeah.
And you think that's the world.
Yeah.
You're only thinking of the next event, or if there's a major event the next year, that's all you're thinking about in life.
Yeah.
It's actually, when I look back at it in one way, like I never regret it, I'd never give it back, but it's actually quite a sad existence to a point as well. The grass is, everyone thinks the grass is greener on the other side. After leaving, I suppose, that style of sport, or being in the crux of that type of pressure, you kind of realize how insignificant, especially in the virus situation at the moment, but how insignificant sport is, in the greater scheme of things. There's so much going on in the world, but you're just focused on, one, yourself, because it's an individual sport, but two, you're just focused on this bubble, what you're in.
Yeah.
And that's been, like, for me, that's been the highlight of actually probably, staying within sport and staying within outdoors in that whole industry, but moving to a lot wider, bigger industry in the sense of just the whole of outdoors scope. Is suddenly you realize, like, there's so many more opportunities. There's so much more out there to kind of explore or meet people like today. And
excellence is a lonely pursuit, though, isn't it? Like, if you're that focused on what you're doing,
100%.
You pretty much can't afford to have external influences.
No.
To get to the top.
So to answer your question, I shut you down on.
You did. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Pretty much, we never thought beyond a few months, weeks, year, whatever. So when I got out of all that, it was like all these new opportunities started coming up, and it was like, so obviously through mainly through Red Bull, to be honest. I mean, they've been around them for a long time, and their whole premise with athletes is like this trade line or trademark, like, gives you wings, right? So they're like, what do you want to do? And as a runner, as an endurance athlete, the normal reaction is people are like, I want to break the record for running over Australia, or mate, that was my worst nightmare. I'm like, I'm a racer. Why would I want to try and run across Australia?
Sounds
or
painful.
Be the first person to ride the Nullarbor or something like that. So I come up with this idea I always have loved to travel, but I never got to see a lot of Australia. So, and time was always an issue for me because, things were going on. I was busy. I was like, what happens if we just give it a week and to see how much of what we can do in a week? So in 7 days, and this just kind of kept rolling, we come up with this idea of, we've got 8 states and territories in Australia. We've got 7 days.
Yeah.
Let's start figuring out ideas of what to do. So the first year we went and ran up to the tallest peak in each state in 7 days. And the travel element of that's what gets really interesting because, these peaks, some of them you're forward driving out the middle of WA, running up in the middle of the night and then camping out and trying to get to the next place and all that. The following year we went and picked, like, what if we had to run one trail in each state and territory, what would it be? What would I choose to run? And we literally went and did that. Last year I went to Japan, did a very similar thing.
That was sketchy. I think I remember that. Didn't you go up some sketchy hills, mountains?
Oh, wow.
They look sketchy.
We went up Fuji. That was enough for me.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's different things with Japan. There was so we had this 7-day idea.
Yeah,
and that's when you.
So I'm taking you off track here.
No, yeah, you'll get me chatting.
My brain works.
You'll have to cut me off if I keep yabbing on. But this 7-day idea really suits me because I can put that time aside and go, and I've got a mate, Shane Barry, who normally comes with me to do it, and we literally go, what do we want to do? What do we want to see? But let's incorporate it into running and kind of include travel, running, bit of inspiration and performance too. So like when I went up to Japan last year, the first day of this 7 days, we literally did a race in Japan up 3,333 steps. So it's the most steps going up to a temple in Japan. Wow. And they ran a race up it. So we're like, let's start there. And then we went off and we visited some monks who...
So you have to walk up those stairs to get to the temple?
Well, you usually would. We were
Seems like you have to be pretty committed to worship that.
Mate, when you said you were going to interview me, I wasn't going to say it was an interesting pursuit.
No, I meant like if that's your temple to worship, you have to go up that many steps just to worship. Surely they could do like a subsidiary down the bottom and say, look, just if you can't look, if you got a sore ankle today, you can just worship this one down here.
Mate, maybe
so religious sorts of they're committed, aren't they?
Mate, it's a whole nother world in Japan. There, like it's such an interesting culture, and I'd spent a lot of time racing in Japan back when I was racing triathlon. So it was kind of the first. It was the chance I had to go back and just kind of explore the outside of the cities and that type of thing. So
this 7 days. So logistics behind that, having to do that, that would obviously take a lot of planning because you had to travel around all those states in 7 days is pretty full on task. Let alone having to sort of compete in a race situation at each one because you're racing up them, really, aren't you? You're trying to knock out those climbs as quick as you can.
Yeah, so we always there's got to be there's got to be a goal to it.
Yeah.
Because like I said, it's not worth, I don't really think there's worth doing something just for the sake of doing it.
Yeah. There's a competitive mindset. I've got to try and get to it.
There's got to be something, yeah. And I mean, that's where the Strava thing these days, it's so good because you can rock up to, Uluru and you'll go and run around Uluru and there's, some guy from the UK holds the record or whatever. So there's always this, virtual racing going on, or there's always something you can compare to. But, for me, it's as much about the experience and the travel and meeting people as it is the running. The running just allows me to do all that.
Yeah. That's the
full circle
conduit. So would you out of like triathlon? So you got swim, bike, run. Would you consider yourself a runner more than anything? That's your forte.
Yeah, I was a runner. That's I started off in nippers, like as a young kid on the Goldie, and then went to school and like obviously realised I could run, and it was a pretty quick progression from that, from a pure runner kind of national level, like even up to that level. And then when I was in the middle of high school, I met a pretty influential character in triathlon, and he kind of knew I could swim from the nipper days. Run, obviously was running like at a really high level. Put the bike into it and went, we've
got something here.
You'd be a pretty decent triathlete, I suppose. Yeah. So by the time I was 17, so my last year of high school, I was already shipped off overseas to Europe.
Yeah,
I was staying and living with the national team at that stage, and pretty much from that day racing.
Whereabouts in Europe?
So that at that stage we were in Germany. Yeah, in a place kind of down near Frankfurt.
Yeah.
It was an old American army base we used to stay at, and like I was only like a 17-year-old, but staying with like some of the best racers in triathlon we've had in Australia, and like kind of learnt the ropes, I suppose, that way. And then from there, it just 20 years, or not quite 20 years, but it just went quick.
Why is Germany the place to train? Because I would think you got a pretty good spot here. Weather-wise, like it's always consistent.
It was like any of those kinds of sports. We'd just chase summer.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And where the racing was, so in Australian winter, we'd always be racing in Europe, or some people would race in America, and then it's the same with the Olympics, right? It's always in Europe, generally always in the European summer. So kind of as a kid here in Australia, you're always doing summer sports,
Yep.
and then you have winter doing rugby or soccer or whatever you play. But then when you actually get to a stage of, I suppose, getting to more of an elite level, you have to kind of flip that, and operate in this world where your main season is then winter and Australian winter, and summer's kind of your holidays.
Yeah. So how many Olympics have you been to?
2. So I went to Beijing and London.
So Beijing was that 08?
08 and 12.
08 and 12. So when you got to, what year did you retire?
Well, I never retired.
Well, from triathlon. Before you thought, so after London,
so after
which would have been 12,
so,
that's 8 years ago.
Yeah, after London, I went quickly into long distance stuff and had like half Ironmans and tried a few Ironman. Like I said, it wasn't that thing, and had good success. And then I tried to go back for a 3rd Olympics to become the first. My aim was to be the first Australian male to go to 3 Olympics in triathlon, and that didn't work out. But in hindsight, I don't regret it because I actually enjoyed. That was a good experience going back to it. But I always, for me, everything's been timing and place.
Yep.
So one of the biggest questions people ask because they look at what I end up in, or where I've ended up, and they're like, how did that happen? And it's always timing and place, and I believe, and probably opportunity to a degree, but you've got to be ready to move on at that time when the opportunity presents itself, right? And for me, that's always what's happened. So
that's how they disguise luck, because luck's where preparation meets opportunity, isn't it? So you were prepared and the opportunity came. So the outside world looks like you're lucky to have these things, but actually it that's how it sort of works out, isn't it?
100%.
Yeah.
But not only preparation, also just foresight of being able to...
Like, because Red Bull could come to me and say, hey, Jono, we want you to run all 7 peaks around Australia, and that'd be fine. It just wouldn't happen. Like, I'd get up one and say, hey, we've got to pull the pin on this. Like,
sure, we can.
I'm all cramped up.
We can get you involved in something, I'm sure, after tonight.
1 peak. I've got 1 peak in me.
1 peak?
Yeah, 1 peak, and then I've got to ice my
I've got a
legs.
good event for you next year.
Well,
yeah.
What's that?
I think one of the fellas, Tannen, he had on, was talking about it, Defiance.
Oh, yeah, we did Defiance.
Oh, you did Defiance?
Yeah.
This year?
Me and Jace. No, 2017.
In New Zealand.
New Zealand, Wanaka.
All right.
I did it. We didn't finish it. Well, I was probably the fault of that. But the next year he finished it in Wanaka.
Of course.
Wanaka.
Kiwis.
Question. What's harder? You'll know. Wanaka or Mission Beach?
Both for different reasons.
Okay.
Yeah.
Discuss.
Discuss.
My Red Bull too.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Discuss when you need energy, yeah. Thanks for having us chat. I still got to get to your chat. I want to know about you a little bit. Eh?
Trust me, no one wants to know about me.
I'm sure there's a story in there.
I got some good stories, but no one wants to know them.
I want to know the story of what happened in Defiance now. No. When you say...
I'll tell you off here.
Yeah, no. Why I think they're probably both hardest, they just got completely different courses.
Yeah.
So New Zealand is obviously extremely, like, the mountains are mountains, right? But they are gradual, you gradually grind up a mountain.
Yeah.
The terrain's pretty comfortable, to be honest, like in the sense of it's not...
Yeah, I disagree, but carry on.
There's nothing really technical in the New Zealand one. It's all on just pretty much four-wheel drive tracks. Like the trails are all pretty good.
Yeah.
The first day in North Queensland, it's in the jungle.
Yeah.
So you're literally... So the run's only up 1,000 meters, but the run took us something like 3 hours and a half, because you're literally running in the jungle trails of like up just south of Cairns.
Yep.
It's taxing, it's hot, it's hard. You never really get a free step. And the same on the bike. Like the bike actually isn't that technical, but it's just continually up and down on really crappy...
Can't get comfortable? You can't get like a rhythm or anything to it?
Nah, it's just always up or down. The path isn't smooth, so you're always, like, every single pedal stroke you're earning. Yeah. And then when you finally do get it downhill, it's rough as... it's just rough and raw. So that's that. And then the second day is really fast and quick. Yeah. So when you're tired, it's hard to go really fast.
So they smash you on the first day with just this mental... Just a mentally smash you.
Rainforest, shitty, hard, tough event. And then the second day is like... You're out
beautiful
on the reef. You should love it, but your legs are dead. And then they make you paddle in the, the craft for hours on end.
And that's like an intense heat too, isn't it? Like the...
Yeah, I mean, it's not too... I mean... it's not the full North Queensland heat because
Yeah.
it's not in the middle of summer or anything, but it's still like humid and hot. And
Well, when we did Wanaka, we came up over. We stayed in Queenstown, which was a mistake, which meant we had a good travel before the second day.
yeah,
I've probably been over the story before, but when we came over that, the peak right at the top where you go from Wanaka to us Queenstown over to Wanaka, we were coming over for the second day.
on the run up.
No, just driving there in the morning. It was snowing.
Yeah,
And it was January.
so you did the year the snow came.
Yeah,
on
the
peak,
snow
and they
came. They shortened it.
See, I mean, that's why it's hard. It would have been absolutely awful.
But then, trust me, I was questioning a lot of decisions when we were going into that. But the next day they had it was like, the next year, sorry, it was so brutally hot and they couldn't get any shade over the mountains. So it's like a dichotomy of it.
I saw that year and I heard about that year, and
it's interesting you say they're both, because that's what they're designed. They're designed to be difficult,
100%.
aren't they? And then who designed the Queensland one?
Not me.
Courtney?
No, not me. No, not me.
I thought you were to blame.
No, definitely not. I would have liked to have designed it, to be
Yeah.
honest. But because I get to spend a fair bit of time up in. I mean, if I had a second kind of home, it'd be up around North Queensland,
Yeah.
right? And get to some of the places up there to go and explore, and whether it's running or kayaking or whatever it is, it's an amazing place. So
Yep.
I had in my mind, if I was to run a race, this is what I'd want to do. But the guys who kind of set the course for Defiance are pretty hardy adventure guys, and they set a great course actually. And
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. It was because I think Kane was in here. Kane Exton?
Yeah.
He was in here. I sort of said to him, would you go again? He's like, never again. And
Yeah,
for him
you
to
know
say
what-
that,
yeah.
and he's a madman. There's something wrong with that bloke in his head. He just can go all day. I mean that in the nicest possible way,
Yeah.
Kane. But he's so for him to say, no, I'm not interested in going back there.
Oh mate, they're designed to.
Yeah.
They're not designed.
He
to
didn't
be
sluggo,
easy.
so
Yeah.
there's something
Yeah.
again. What a crack up there, do I? Yeah, but it's that Wanaka's like, I mean, it's beautiful over there, but it's just that intensity of that Roy's Peak is because I've actually swapped it now, haven't they? I've swapped the days.
Yeah, I mean New Zealand's.
Yeah, forever.
We'll see. Never say never. But at the moment, yeah,
At the
it's
moment.
New Zealand. I mean, we unfortunately, with everything going on this year, the Australian one at Mission Beach has been postponed. So
Yep.
there's a date now set for 2021.
When's that? When is it? If they
Um,
put you on the spot here.
Actually, I can't. Yeah, there's a date set
Yeah,
for
okay.
2021.
I believe you.
It will be on,
Yeah.
100%. And like it was, it's a shame it didn't get to run this year. But like everything, it's always next year.
Gives me time to shed 30 kilo and get on the start line.
I'm going to hold you to it now. You're coming.
I'll be there in one way or another. Might come there to live podcasts. How about that? Perfect. Now, Coast to Coast as well. I want to talk to you about that because that's another one that's another probably bucket list item, I would have thought, once you started to... Was that paddle sort of thing? Because are you from a paddling background? I know you surf lifesaving, but nothing... Was that a daunting prospect to have to go down and do that?
Wasn't so
Like,
much,
'cause-
mate, it was exciting.
Everything else is piece of cake for you, really. You're like, look, I've got the bike, I can run.
Yeah.
I got the rest of it covered. But the paddling, because I know that a lot of people, that's really their Achilles heel was the paddle. Like they'd love to do so many races or so many different things out there, but when it comes to anything in the water,
Yeah, I mean, New Zealand's unique, right? And especially, I suppose, down that river is, you know, with the white water.
Waimakariri. There we go.
You can say it better than I can. Waimak. Yeah.
Yeah, close enough.
Close enough. But yeah, like, I mean, I paddled in the surf, and I'm definitely not like a Kenny Wallace paddler or anything. You know, I'm not the world's
many
best
people
paddler.
are,
Yeah. Although, you know, you like to think you are when you start.
You feel like it when you're going, don't you? You
Hey,
think,
once you start paddling next to a guy who can paddle, you realise you're definitely not that.
I feel that with running.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
So, first time down the river, I'm thinking, you know, be sweet. I was in an intermediate boat.
Yep.
Literally the first rapids, straight in.
Oh no.
Yeah.
This was on the race. This was on your first trial.
No. I went over. So the race director at the time was a mate of mine, Richard Usher.
Yeah.
And he's kind of
Yeah.
I suppose the guy who really helped me out and got me involved in the adventure side of it, especially around coast to coast. And he literally put me at like the top, because you need a grade 2 certificate or whatever it is, grade 3. And, he put me at the top of the river in the boat and said, you know, just like ferry across there. You can do that. All right, we're good to go. we'll work it out on the way
Yeah,
down. And he knew, obviously, we can swim reasonably decent,
Yeah.
and you're not going to stress in water because you're used to the surf. But it's such a different experience.
It's a different sort of swimming, though, isn't it? Once you go out in the river, it's not.
Oh, mate, once you're upside down in a boat in a freezing water for the first time and you're stuck in it, you kind of, and that's the first time, you freak out pretty quick. But what really got me, I suppose, was just what made me interested in that race more than anything was the terrain and just how bloody nice it is.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a tough race, and the whole endurance aspect of it's one thing, but the fact, I still don't think there's an event in the world that I've come across that is that nice.
Yeah.
Put it simply.
Makes sense. Good spot.
Mate, it's like...
Yeah. People don't realise it. Almost the photos don't almost do it justice until you're there and you can actually see... Like, I've never done anything like that, but just being in those places, it's just unreal.
Yeah, I suppose for, like, New Zealanders who are brought up around the mountains and, you know, there's so much nice terrain across the whole country, but for Aussies going over into that environment, and it's just, like, and it's eye-opening.
I found that when I lived there, that's just the countryside. If you have to travel somewhere, you think, oh, I've got to travel there. That's all you think about. When you move somewhere like here or go somewhere else and you come back, then you actually you actually start to take it in and go, wow, I can understand why people think this is so beautiful.
100%.
Yeah.
But we've, like, the thing is, we've got around here on the Goldie some bloody nice places that people don't realise.
Yeah,
I think what
you have to go more than 2 kilometres from the beach, though, and generally that's where people stop.
They probably
isn't
stop,
it?
yeah. And the fact that we have really well-established trails in areas that showcase some really, like, amazing places. But if you just go down the river another few K, you're suddenly in, there's like there is a place called Lost World at the back, but you're in another world. Like, it's amazing, some of the rainforests in the back.
You're talking about just Nerang, aren't you?
No, more up like Springbrook, O'Reilly's, Beachmont, like up around the Border Range area. It's you know, you're not going to find any, like, as far as saying, unless you wanted like major altitudes in mountains, but you're not going to find any nicer spots in some of those places.
Yeah. They call it the green behind the gold. Have you heard that before?
Yeah, well, no, I haven't. New one.
There you go.
I'm going to trademark that.
It's all yours. It's all yours. I think I heard someone else say it, so it's probably theirs. Okay. So about the coast. So how many times did you fall out that little?
First time down, I probably was out like 3 or 4 times. I mean, once you once you get the hang of it, it was fine. And then the first year I tried the race, I got down the whole course, all good. Literally relaxed on the last corner and went in. Like, I don't even think it wasn't even a rapid. It was just literally like,
I'm here.
Oh mate, I was so stuffed, and I wasn't stuffed more from you know, breathing and endurance. My ass was just killing me.
Yeah. Because you've already done a big, was that a 2-day or a 1-day?
The 1-day, yeah.
So you've already done a fair haul like that day. Like, you've already done a massive haul, actually.
But it's just you've been on your legs all day, but to sit in a boat for 5 hours locked in a boat, mate, my butt was just like just on fire. This isn't sounding real good, is it?
I'm with you. No, I'm picking up what you're putting down. Yeah. Your ass is on fire. But because you turn that corner and then you're obviously you can see when you got to get out and you're there.
I was just glad I was just enough around the corner no one could see me.
Oh really? Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
So then you got to get out and do a ride, don't you? So that would have almost stuffed you a little bit, wouldn't it? Because didn't your body temperature get down because you'd just been in the water, or was it?
Yeah. I mean, by that stage, it's just
you just want to get out and finish.
It's just a slog. But yeah, I mean, it's coast to coast, the Rap Coast. It's probably one of the best, if not the best, one of the best events on the globe.
Yeah.
As far as like endurance racing goes, like Ironman, I understand Ironman in the sense that you're really testing yourself in like a singular pursuit.
Yeah.
And you've got this whole, it's about speed, and there's so many more.
It's almost
elements.
like a long time trial, isn't it?
It is. There's so many elements now around it. You know, not only just power, but like aerodynamics and nutrition. And so it's like, it's definitely still the top of like the creme la creme of endurance racing. But for interest's sake, or for your average, like for me, if you were to say to anyone else, like, what would be more interesting? Like, coast to coast every day. It's just an experience.
Because with those Ironmans, they have like the power meters, and they've got it almost down to like, it's almost like they have their race so perfectly planned out that they can, you know, they know where they're going to be. Whereas with that stuff, you can't allow for you tripping over and, you know, hurting your knee a little bit. And you got to continue on, or you can't, you know. hit the wall here and there.
Horses for courses, right?
Yeah.
Different people are like in their mind have different ways of thinking about things. They have different interests, and endurance sports is always a really interesting one, because if you ask someone, the average person, like, why do you, like, these days the trend is to go and run 100 K's, right? These trail runs. Like, why do you want to go and run 100K? Like, and I actually asked this to people, and a lot of the time, because I'm like, I actually myself don't understand. But on the flip side, I've obviously got a little bit of that crazy. I've got that little crazy in me too, but I'm kind of I think everyone's so individual as to what drives them to do something, or do something in that endurance space. But the one thing I think is a common denominator, it helps everyone. Yeah. So I think endurance sport especially is one thing, but I think it's got such great ties around, not. I hate saying it's around mental health, because I don't think it's about mental health, but it's about structuring your day. It's about goals. It's about, having something to do. It's about being outdoors. All of these things add up to being healthy. And it's not about being physically healthy. It's about everything going together healthy.
We had a guy in here a couple of weeks ago, Trent Harding, and he actually won the 100K race at Nerang.
Yeah, okay.
They had there, but he was overweight 2 years ago. Then he decided, stuff this, I'm just going to have some discipline. He's a very disciplined man now, like freakishly disciplined.
But there's a reason. There's an underlying reason.
It's like he was addicted to like alcohol and I'm not sure if I shouldn't say he was addicted to drugs. I don't 100% know if he was addicted to drugs. He was a party boy. Just loved beers and nose beers and all the beers, and just loved it.
Mate, we all love beers.
Yeah. But he was like just abusing it all. And then it's like he almost had to find this thing, and then he sort of took his intense attitude towards that to just discipline and training, and that's resonated in him winning these long distance races, because that's the demon inside his head that he has to exercise to get to that point. And I feel like that's sort of what he transferred it to, something unhealthy to something healthy, and that's probably why a lot of them, that's that appeal of that 100-kilometer race. It's a way of hurting yourself, isn't it? Like, you can for positivity.
100%. I mean, I honestly don't understand it, and everyone's got their own reasons. So
you think you don't understand it? How do you think I feel? And you could do it. It's a confusing part.
Sure, there's things I don't understand about. Everyone, each to their own, right? In what you
hugely,
do.
yeah.
And that's like, I suppose, going back to what I was talking about being in a bubble of sport. I mean, that's the beauty of now being outside of sport, is you just get to see. You never assume
no.
anyone else or any other kind of aspect or different pastimes or whatever.
One more on the coast to coast.
Yep.
Is that something you'd ever put all your eggs in that basket to go well at? Like, obviously you go pretty well at it, but it sounds like to me it's just another race on the calendar for you. Is it something that you would ever just go, this year I'm gonna really have a crack at this?
I always thought I would. To be honest, I don't think it would happen that way anymore. Just life took off and in different directions. Never commit to anything that like you. But I think the next time I'd love to go to coast is, I've got a 7-year-old son. So the next time I do coast, I'd actually like to, when he's old enough to race it.
Yeah.
I think I'd love to go and race the pairs with him.
Yeah, cool.
And to me, that would be the next experience of taking him through something like that together. But to commit to coast to race, like, I gave it one really good shot, and my paddling just
let you down a little bit.
I mean, it just was never going to be able to compete in. Like, I lost over half an hour in the boat, just against the guys in the paddling. But
how far off the pace were you from the winner in the end? Who won it that year? Braden Curry, did he?
No, Sam Clark won it most of the years that I was kind of looking at it. But as far as like committing time to it, you think about it like it's got all that skill involved of what it is. You probably got to train for it just as hard as an Ironman or more, and put that much time and effort in it. If you think about as a profession, that's full time, but there's only one of those races each year on the calendar.
Yeah.
So you've kind of got to be a full time coast to coast athlete,
and they are. They are pretty much. That's what they are.
But to me, like I said, life moves on, and you've got different things to look at.
Yeah. Because there's nothing really that can replicate that.
There isn't. Like
in a race.
we've looked at it in Australia time and time again of like how can we do this coast to coast idea in Australia, and we just don't have the terrain. When you're talking about interesting things to do, that whole idea around history. Every single New Zealander knows about coast to coast because it's got this amazing history.
The 80s, I think it started.
Yeah,
it's been around.
And the spot, beer sponsors and all. Everything adds up to make a race interesting. And then the fact it actually goes from one side of New Zealand to the other in a day, that's what makes a race interesting. And then you've got the nice, like the terrain. But where could you replicate that?
Yeah, well, that's true.
And you need 30 years.
Yeah. It's consistency that's helped that race.
Consistency,
yeah.
So brilliant race.
So what's your? You must have a sort of like, now that you're out of that bubble, do you have races that you have your eye on now?
Right at this moment, no.
Nothing.
Nothing really. Probably have more interest now in looking at things like what if there's not a race that makes it is like interesting enough. Can we create something that's interesting to do? Or, is there some place I can go and do something that's of interest? And generally, you're always looking for something that's not necessarily first done, but something we can kind of put like a performance element to it. So go and do something that you do, like it's been done, or someone would go there. And when I say a performance element on it, not I'm going to be the first person or the quickest to go the furthest.
Yeah.
I still like. In my gut, I still always like this idea of we're endurance athletes, but it's operating endurance at that kind of red line of how long can you actually go at this pace. Yeah. So once it kind of flips into survival mode, to me, that's like a different sport.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And that happens like it's probably around that 3.5 to 4 in triathlon. It's probably around 3 hours 45 to 4 hours. Like now, half Ironmans are getting that way.
So you're redlining it pretty much.
You are literally being able to operate at that kind of level for that long. It used to kind of be more around that's why a marathon's a marathon and it's so challenging, right? Yeah. Around that 2 hour mark on. Or 2 hours plus on that one muscle group. With multi-sport, you can kind of get a little bit longer than that because you're obviously using different muscle groups. Yeah. But once it goes beyond that and it becomes survival mode, it's a whole different event then, and your goals completely change. So one idea is like I'm going to try and go as hard as I possibly can, and the reason I'm not going to either win or achieve what I want to achieve is because I'm literally going to fall off the edge.
Yeah, right.
Fall off the edge of performance. Yeah, I'm going to bonk.
I'm with you. Yeah.
The other way is I'm not going to achieve what I'm going to achieve because mentally, or I haven't done enough training, or mentally I'm just like not in it, or whatever else. But it's like this survival mode, and that appeals to a lot of people. And don't get me wrong, like there's things I've definitely put myself in that is in that area. But if you said what do I prefer, I'll always come back to the racing's racing.
The intensity.
Yeah.
You smile about it when you say it too. You're like, racing's racing. You're like, I'm going to do it. Yeah.
In the end, there's nothing better than being head to head with someone or a group of people all operating at a very similar
clip
ability.
Yeah.
And you're on the edge and someone's going to fail.
Because at that high level, like what you were in with the put his porno on. With the
Jesus is trying to kick us out.
It's not coming through your...
That's the alarm. We've got 5 minutes.
Decline the call. Sorry, boys. I don't even turn this off.
Yeah, is yours on silent?
Yep.
Yeah, right. Yeah. We're professionals.
Sorry, boys.
We're professionals. What was I going to say? Lost my train of thought now.
That's all right.
Porn. That's
you keep losing your train of thought.
Yeah, that's right. You're not helping with triathlon. That's right. Yeah. At that, you'd know at that intense level, we had Trevor Hendy in here a little while ago, and he was talking about those elite Ironmen, when it was Uncle Toby's, and he said they were all of equal ability, all like maybe the top 10, top 15, but it was the mental side that separated them. So like everybody could, like in your instance, everybody can swim. Like a fish. Everybody can run like the wind, and they've all got pretty good cycles, or riding legs, whatever you want to call it. Is it? It's on the day. Well, like obviously everybody has their strengths, so you might be a stronger swimmer than the Brownlees or whatever, but you've got you know, there's always that part that's the mental part that whoever's on their day can win it. Because in triathlon, I like watching it. I think it's quite a cool event to watch. It always seemed like it went up and down. Like there's always new guys, and they'd say, "Oh, this guy was 9th last week." I thought, well, why is he first this week? Because there's no external. You know, you're saying coast to coast. I'll get there. My point's coming. Like coast to coast, someone could fall out, or someone could pick the wrong line, or vice versa. But in triathlon, it's all pretty straightforward. So why does someone go 10th one week, first the next week, when nothing changes? Nothing's changed.
Well,
apart from the course.
It's the reason why when we began the chat, I said I think triathlon or multi-sports keep you interested, because of the same reason when you're racing.
Yeah.
If you overdo your swim or you're a little bit off on the swim, that has an effect on your bike, which has an effect on your run. So what it's not the same as just running a marathon on one muscle group. So how each leg or how it goes affects the end result. So, you know, my strength was always running. I mean, and generally in Olympic style triathlon, that's what wins you the race.
Yep.
But some days I couldn't run.
Yeah.
And that was because I'd over push the bike, or you know, I might have been I may have been sprinting too much in training swimming, and I'd actually be swimming fast, but I didn't have the endurance to kind of get through a swim. So the whole goal around probably all endurance events, but especially in triathlon, is you actually don't want to be the fastest swimmer.
Yep.
You want to be the fastest swimmer being able to expend the least amount of energy.
It's the most efficient.
Yeah. And then same with the bike, you want to be able to be there, but you need to be able to then conserve as much energy. So that's, you know, there's the whole science behind that, between, you know, fat burning and a whole range of things. But that's why the results vary so much.
True, yeah.
Because there's so many there doesn't look like there's variables, but there's always three variables.
Yeah.
Variables. And that's what makes that's what to me made triathlon interesting, because there was always a way, I suppose, if you had a competitor and you thought, oh, mate, that guy's just quicker than me running, I just can't outrun this guy. Like, he is more talented, he's faster.
Yep.
But you always had a chance of beating him, because you could take the front end of the race, you could hurt them in the swim, or you could do something, break away on the bike and get a lead, whatever it was. And that's what makes triathlon, I suppose, as a sport. It might be the most spectator-friendly sport, but as a racer, in especially Olympic distance style racing or faster racing, that was what always kept it interesting.
How much came down to how much you knew of your competitors?
Heaps too.
Heaps.
Yeah, where you took off, how you rode them on the bike, you know, a whole range, definitely a whole range.
So you could know, hey, this guy's a red hot swimmer. I'm not going to go with him when he goes, because I know he's going to blow out in the run. I'm just going to let him have his time, and
vice versa. That if you're sometimes, if you miss a swim, like if you can't swim quick enough, you can be the quickest runner in the world.
Yeah,
and you're never going to be in the race.
Yeah,
so
that's what I thought. Also, now that you think about it, you sort of envision the fast swimmer taking off, and you think, oh, I'm just going to go with him today, and then you go with him, and that hurts you in the last 10k of your run.
Yep.
You know,
10k.
No, that's
10K.
The whole run, isn't it?
10k in the Olympics. Yeah.
10k in the Olympics. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about because obviously to be an Olympic triathlete you need to be competitive, or just an athlete in general. How have you sort of transitioned out of your triathlon days where you're so heavily competitive into what it is you do now? Does that feed your fix for competition when it comes to that? Because I know some guys, like mainly sort of like team sports, like NRL players, things like that, when they leave, they go a little bit wayward because they've lost that camaraderie. It's a little bit different when you're in an individual pursuit like you were, but there's a competitiveness that you have to have, and you can't turn that off, I'm assuming.
Yeah, well, that's why I said I never retired, because I know she said
that.
I kind of stopped doing that area of sport, but I never actually, and to today, I still haven't actually stopped operating in sport in one shape or form or another. So I can still get my competitive fix that way. But eventually it kind of just slow down and whatever, like other things come
You wean
up.
yourself off a little bit.
I think the problem with athletes happens, and obviously you see it in the news a lot, is when it's like just cut hard and dry. One day, you know, you're playing footy on a field for whoever it is, Bulldogs or someone, and then the next day you're got to find your way in the world or do whatever it is. So, and there's like, for every athlete that, you know, in great sports that a multi-millionaires or whatever, and live a great life after. There's probably the other 99% of athletes. You still got to find your way in the world. So
a lot of that comes from injury too, isn't it? Like some of them will just get injured and then kiss goodbye to their contact sport or kiss goodbye to what they do.
100%. So I mean, this year, just because the Olympics is shut down, and you think of a lot. There's so many different industries that have been affected, but athletes as well. If your whole life revolved around going to an Olympic Games this year, then
that's an interesting point. How would you have you given it some thought to, if you were preparing for these Olympics coming out this year, how you would mentally because say you thought, I'm gonna have one last crack at this Olympics. You decided I'm gonna make a big comeback. It's going to be head news.
It would have retired me for sure.
It would have. You couldn't have. Mate, you couldn't have seen it.
I don't like talking about it because there's so many other this isn't sports only.
Yeah.
What's happened in the last few months is affected.
Oh yeah, it's worldwide. But
this sport is the least thing that should be
in this little bubble because this has affected so many athletes.
Yeah.
And especially guys that are at the end of their career. And this was their last kick.
Yeah, it could retire them for sure. If I was back 5, probably even 5 years ago, maybe more, 10 years ago.
Yeah,
I actually don't know how I would have responded to it, and I haven't had to think about it in that way. But I do feel I really feel for the athletes. But on the flip side, I do then go, well, hang on, this is sport.
Yeah,
and
it could be a lot worse.
A lot worse things going on than that. Like this is realistically. With perspective now, I can kind of go well.
But when you're in that bubble, you probably wouldn't. It probably would have been.
And that's what makes it. That's what makes it so difficult, right? Because if you don't have the perspective, and you've only ever known that, I know they cop a lot of criticism. But if you've only ever known that, and you don't know the real world, then that's how you react. You think, well, this is my world. Everything revolves around this, and
a lot of people losing the plot. I reckon they just wouldn't know how to handle it. They can't, especially I think as swimmers, they can't go to the pool. They can't do what they do.
Yeah. Anyway,
we'll never find out. So what's a sort of like a day look like for you now that you're out of competition? You still obviously keep up with your training, but you're doing a lot of all your filming and stuff, a lot of editing yourself, or
every single day is different. Today today alone, the surf was good this morning, so I especially when we're not really stressed about getting ready for something specifically for sport. I cross train a lot more, so and that can involve surfing, mountain biking, even hiking now. I just take a step back and just chill, running, whatever it is at the time. So this morning I ended up going surfing of all things instead of running. Come home really quickly. I actually had a chat with a young athlete this morning, so more in a mentoring role, about a range of things, but more so I'm not out there in the public mentoring or coaching anyone that, but through the different organisations I work with, we do some of that. So that was this morning. Then I actually spoke to the whole business of Red Bull today.
We picked a good day to ask about it.
On a big conference call. And then, mate, I've been actually I was working on this afternoon on an article for Men's Health, of all things.
Jeez,
that's
a lot of variety.
That's a day in a life today. But on Monday, I literally was live streaming for Tourism Queensland at a zoo. And that's what people always say.
I see it keeps you interested because it's all different. Yeah,
but everything stems from me being an athlete.
Yeah,
and those opportunities come. So my whole, just to kind of, if people kind of go, well, one day he's doing this and one day he's doing that, the whole way I came into the area of, filming, and by no means am I making Hollywood blockbusters or, full time doing that. But I've always just had an interest of, when you talk about time and opportunity, when GoPro first brought a camera out, I was the first guy in ITU triathlon, so Olympic style triathlon at the time, to put a GoPro on my bike in a race.
Oh wow, really? Yeah, cool.
But at that time I had no interest in it was just more I saw it, probably was really attuned to it in other sports, what was going on, and did it. And that literally, and this is going back a long time ago, I think it was in the days where Twitter had in Australia was the only kind of platform and just boomed. Prior to athletes being on it or anything, and this one video that then suddenly created all these opportunities for me because people were like, wow, like, what's that? Literally the next week, the Global Federation put a ban on it and put a rule in because I'd literally broken their TV rights.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So it got shut down that quick. But first to market, first to do something. And then that has just continued. I've just always, like when drones first come out, I was just like, I've always had the interest in what's next and always been thinking like, what's a point of difference?
Yeah.
And which I suppose is sometimes been to the detriment maybe of my competitiveness, in the fact that like I've always been a little bit spread out than just purely focused on something, but that's what keeps me interested, and it's always led me to the next thing. And the same thing with I actually wasn't going for the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games. I was pretty much outside of sport at that time, but they'd asked me whether I'd come in and do some more like TV hosting around the Commonwealth Games, and the way it all turned out was they didn't need someone in that area, but I happened to just fill in this action sequence of us like POV running around. I can't even remember what it was at the time, running. Yeah. And they said, but hang on, for tourism, we're really interested in, can you do that in Queensland for us? Yeah. So that then set us off like around the Commonwealth Games. I ended up, that I suppose was my real kickstart into tourism, is I was literally adventure, like we were bungee jumping mountain bikes off AJ Hackett bungee in Cairns. Yeah. We were jumping dune buggies out at Big Red, and like...
He was trying to ride a cross-country bike with like a mil of suspension down a World Cup rock garden.
You're trying to kill yourself.
Yeah, but like, I was pinching myself just going... Yeah. Here's one day I'm an athlete kind of thinking, what's the next step? And then I'm literally getting to go and do all this stuff because I picked a GoPro up. Like,
but that's how it happens, like serendipitously, out of nowhere, just... you do something you're passionate about, and that'll, the support will follow that if you're because you clearly enjoyed doing it.
Yeah, you just got to be ready, and forget about sport. Just got to be ready for opportunities, and to be like really frank. And you're talking about a podcast, like it's one thing. I don't know if we covered it at the beginning of the recording, but like it's one thing I didn't do really. Yeah.
What was your reason for that?
I actually don't have, to be honest, it was time. I'm really conscious. Yeah. I'm really like conscious of my time. And there was, I suppose, podcasts, the way it started at least. I knew people listened and everything, but it was just like, if you're going to be in one, where do you kind of draw the line of, and I hate, as much as I hate saying no to people, but if I'm going to say no, I've got to be consistent in saying no. So if I wanted to say, like when people are reaching out, if I was to go say no to someone, I wanted them to be able to go, the reason I'm saying no is because I actually don't do this. So I've actually rooted myself
set yourself
now.
a standard.
Yeah, I'm stuffed because I can't. Sorry about that. I'm not going to be able to say no.
But, no, you told me this was your
no,
last
but
one.
The reason I then decided, like, I listened to some of yours after you reached out, and some of the guys you'd chatted to were like really interesting. So I was like, well, this is a way I can actually talk to new people. Yeah. Have a different conversation, and it's opening opportunities, but not because I want like podcasting or people to listen. I actually want to meet some different people in different industries, because we always associate like same around.
I think a lot of people associate, and me and Joseph spoke about this as well, like people do associate like podcasts are sometimes probably looked at and maybe in the wrong light, I think sometimes as a media outlet, and also in a way where they might get trapped into saying something they don't want to say, and maybe like a fear that they think that they're going to put their foot in it, because usually like an interview, think any interview possibly done with, say, I don't know, Triathlon Weekly, what is it, like a 10-minute interview, and then they clip it in the whole time, where if you've got an hour to actually open up about what you want to speak about, people get to know you a lot more and what you're about, how it all came about, and then B, it opens up opportunities for sort of to show what that the legitimacy behind what it is you do. Because if you follow, you say, like, what's your largest following? Probably like social media would be on like Instagram, let's say.
Yeah, let's say Instagram, yeah.
So all you see is, a little snippet here and there, 2 minutes here and there. 3 minutes here and there. No one actually really gets to know and dive into that, and that's why I enjoy it, because now I get to speak to you for an hour.
Yeah.
And find out what makes you tick, like how you work, how it all came about.
But most people shouldn't be scared because they're putting their breakfast and everything on there, right? So
Well,
you know
that's
their whole day. But
that's the dichotomy of it
I
all,
always
isn't it?
think you got to,
Yeah. Some people want all of their business out there, but they don't want to talk about it. But they want to put,
Yeah.
trust me.
But
there's some bullshit involved.
yeah, I listened to a few of the guys I knew that you'd spoken to, and they were really interesting to me. Like I was actually. I'm going to listen right through this because when I go running, I generally listen to music if I'm running on my own. But because if you've got an interest in something, you'll actually listen to it. So I've found it hard in the past to listen to podcasts. So it's really like if someone you want to find out more about. So you're dead right with that. And I don't know, that got off on a tangent.
No. And then also like speaking of Jace as well, like you get involved. Like someone might have a look and say, oh, I really. Young triathlete might want to listen to what you've said, or someone who's, following a similar path to what you are, and sort of you saying, oh, look, it just happened because I wasn't actively trying to make it happen. It happened organically because this is what I was interested in and this is how it happened. So then they might look at your podcast and then they might go, oh, I actually like this guy as well and actually like this guy as well, and sort of can go through the back catalogue of it all and see, see if there's anyone else they're interested in listening to.
100%. So is there anything outside of sport you want to know?
Oh.
Because that was like super sporty, hey.
Well, you're an athlete. Let's see. Outside of sport. Dive deep, yeah, I know. You're a sport, but what... I'm not going to say influencer because that's not what you are. But with Red Bull and things like that, is it you don't have... Dinner, it's almost dinner time.
No, this is good.
Yeah, it's good.
It's
right.
fine.
Good. With Red Bull, it always intrigues me about that whole relationship, like how Red Bull seems to be a lifestyle brand as opposed to like a sports brand. Would you say? You didn't really look like you thought that. That's what I think anyway.
Red Bull's a lifestyle brand because, the number of cans they sell around the world, the people drinking it are generally everyday people. There's a crap load of cans that, for the right reasons, I suppose we were talking about tradies, they're going to need energy during their day, right? It's actually a drink that works. But I think when you say it's a lifestyle brand, 100% it is. But the athletes who are involved or like branded that you see, Tobe's helmet in the back or Toby Price's helmets in the background, going to get him in trouble.
Yeah. Put a cover over that.
The athletes they get involved with are literally the best of the best at when they bring them on in the pinnacle of their career, right? So from that aspect, I see it as like, mate, it's a sports. It's not a sports drink, but it's a sports brand in the sense that, when you think about the 500 athletes or so around the globe.
Is that how many they got that sort of work with them? Yeah,
give or take. But if you think about who they are and what they've done, and the personalities as well, it's like a real not only an interesting, I suppose, lot of athletes, but like it's like when you walk into a room of whether it's here in Australia or it's over in one of the other countries, it's like the best of the best, but like from a real variety of sports, and sometimes sports you don't really think about. But it's
is that crazy getting a room? And you think, wow,
never a dull moment. It's pretty good. But then there's other, that's just one of them. Like I then will go off with, say Solomon at the moment, which is the ski brand, and they do, probably the biggest trail running brand on the globe. And, I'll go down, last year we were down in Tassie with them doing that, and it was just runners with us, but, it's a whole different group again with their own interest and everything else. So each brand have their, and then you take say Tourism Queensland, for example, Queensland Tourism, and you've spoken to Sean, and there's different people who are involved with them, and that's another whole group. And I've been in places where I've done jobs, and no one's even had an idea that I'm an athlete. Yeah, and it's actually quite nice.
That's cool
because there's always this feeling behind, like when you do something, it's like, oh, but it's not so much that they would know, but you kind of think, oh, I've probably got this because of what I've done in the past or whatever. So it's actually quite a nice surprise when someone just purely has no idea and
there's a reason, isn't there, with someone like Tourism Queensland, there's a reason that there's a Like they don't just pick up, they don't see Jim down at the shop and say, hey, can you come in and do something for tourism in Queensland? There's a reason. There's some sort of something you bring to the market.
Yeah, I mean,
we
like honestly, we're Queenslanders and we help out. That's the basis of what we do, and obviously pick up cameras and show nice, great locations or interesting experiences, and like it's pretty simple, right? That's the basis of it. We're Queenslanders and we show off Queensland.
Yeah.
And it's probably no different to like any of the brands, right? I'd hate to think anyone's around brands or products, and not even in partnership, but you don't really go and buy a product you don't like or don't want, and it's no different to. I'd hope it's no different for athletes, right? Yeah. And I suppose maybe that's the difference between an athlete and something else.
With your how many kids have you got?
2.
How old are they?
So I've got my daughter's just in high school, and I've got a 7-year-old son.
That's the one that's going to be in the coast to coast.
Coast to coast.
Does he have a choice?
No.
Okay. You've got quite an interesting little. I noticed. I don't know if you want to put your business out there, but their own Instagram page where they basically just go around and do all sorts of traveling and off the grid stuff. Like
I mean we're definitely not. It's not to say we don't go to hotels and things like that as well, but like we definitely like to see the outdoors.
Yeah.
Whether that's outback or whether that's coastal stuff or whatever it is. But that the whole basis of what that came about was I was filming more for myself doing action adventure stuff, and then the family were there, and it was just like we said, timing and opportunity. It actually just happened. So a lot of the and that's a bigger world, right?
Yeah.
And when you talk about being an athlete, like there's a lot more families out there than there are people who like unique trail running, put it that way.
Yeah.
So it's just markets, and because if you look at it this way, I'd take a camera regardless.
Yeah.
And I mean, most people would, right? If you're on holidays or you're doing something, maybe not to the extent of, taking out a big red or something, but most people would take a camera, something to take a memory,
most of them
right?
got their phones, don't they? Everyone's got their phones.
Everyone's got their phones. Everyone, it's normal these days. But for me, my interest has still always been around just like small cameras and just taking real stuff. So it worked out really well in that respect, and the kids kind of like it now. Yeah.
I guess the cool thing about that too is you've got like documentation of all your adventures. It's a memory.
There's so time. That's what you what you wish for, because we've got people around, I suppose, film will understand this. We going back to sport probably a little bit more here, but we'll have so much footage of a trip. And so much raw good footage, but the end output is like a minute and a half of like, just the best bits, or it might be unique to whatever the brand it is they want to see, watches or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You've got hours of this other footage, and it just sits there.
Yeah.
It's such a shame, because that's actually often the best stuff.
Some of that's the gold. Yeah. The outtakes.
In another world, I would actually love to just take a year to go back through everything we've got in the last 6 years. And I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who'd love to do exactly the same, because we just you're so quick just to get onto the next something happens, you output it, next thing, output it, next thing, output next thing. And even like on a weekend, I was out at O'Reilly's last weekend, and it just took a GoPro with me, a couple of snippets and whatever else, but there's still other stuff we did out there, smucking around on vines or climbing trees that I'll probably never look at it again.
Well, someone will find that one day and go through it all, and it will be, if they can find a way to log on. Be like on a CD-ROM now, or a floppy disk.
Which actually broke into a CD yesterday, trying an old Mac CD player we had stuck yesterday, and I thought, when we needed the disc, I thought, when are you ever going to need a CD player again? So I just got out the pliers and just ripped the thing open.
Oh, mate,
she's gone.
I found a 3-pack of floppy disks a little while ago, and they were all pristine in their packet. And I was like, should I throw these away, or should I keep them? And like, they might be worth something.
They'll be worth something one day. Think of the evolution of now you're under tech.
Yeah.
So the evolution of like music players.
Yeah.
So from we're at MP3 now or whatever, but even when you actually had the mini disc players, because always we wanted to run with music in the smallest possible form. You started off with the big bulky old CD players that you used to rock around, and then as they get smaller and smaller, I wish I had every single one of them down to the.
Be like a collector's item.
No one even has what was not an iPod, a shuffle.
A shuffle, yeah. Oh, those things were the gold,
mate.
Yeah.
Think of all we've forgotten about them already. That was
I threw the floppy disks away too. I sort of regret it now.
Anyway,
as soon as I threw them away, I thought, I should have kept those.
Yeah.
But the last thing I need
when
in my house.
When you start talking like that, you're a dad.
Yeah. Should have kept floppy disks. I know I'll get home, my wife will be like, what are you keeping these floppy disks for? Oh, you never know. You never know. In 2043, they might be real cool. So that's, especially with you traveling, that's like a conscious effort you're making with the kids, is to take them to, because you look like they're pretty well traveled. Unfortunately, they get to travel with you, so they get to see a lot of places. So that's a conscious effort to make sure they get a little bit off the grid. And
100%.
a lot of kids could do with more of that.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, my kids are bloody around iPads more than they should be as well. As you gotta be realistic in the modern world, and you kind of want to, you want to show them the best of the outdoors, but at the same time, they need to operate in a modern society. So they definitely, are on just I'd assume most kids on all that type of stuff. But I think for a family, at least, the best thing you can do is get to a place for a good period of time that you don't have mobile reception.
Yep.
Because you can still have the iPads and all your, technology and watch a movie or whatever, so you can still have that little bit of connection. But I think it's the actual internet that causes majority of the problem.
Yep.
So you quickly find, we did a trip out on the Savannah Way, out to the back of Lawn Hill National Park, so right out on the Northern Territory border of Queensland, and we were pretty much 3 weeks just with a rooftop tent camping.
Yeah, wow.
And literally 4 of us sleeping in a rooftop tent, it was close quarters.
Yeah,
nice. 2 kids and the whole family. But what we realised is after 3 weeks, best trip in the world, because we spent the time with the family, but you had no mobile reception.
Yeah.
And you just quickly, after 3 or 4 days, who cares?
Yeah.
You don't need it.
Nice.
But you got to be realistic too.
Yeah, life goes on too, especially when you got run a business or doing what you're doing. Emails are pretty important and things like that. Pretty important to come in. But
yeah,
I don't know. I'd love to do it. I'll do it tomorrow if I could throw my phone away. It'll kill me. We actually went to Fiji. Went to one of those outer islands. Actually went shark diving, and we got there and there was nothing. It was 2.5 hour boat ride, and then might have been a 10-minute little boat ride in from the boat to the island. No reception, no nothing. I don't even know if there was power out there. There must have been power. No water. It was just the most remote. I remember thinking, this would be the perfect. We should be on holiday here. There's just nothing. There's nothing you can do. It was a bit scary. We were going shark diving, and it wasn't really close to anything. Sharks were pathetic anyway. They weren't going to take anyone. Nothing like at Alcatraz. But I remember thinking, this is the perfect place to bring the family. We should come here for at least 3 days. At least I don't know if I can handle 3 days more, but 3 days you just need to be there, let go of everything, and I bet it'll take a day to get used to it. A day, the second day you start to warm to it and go, this is great. Third day you probably don't want to go back to what you were originally part of.
100%.
And then you see the people out there, not a stress in the world. They don't have this angst of what's actually out there that they could be going and doing. They just think, this is my life, and they love it, and they're free and easy. And
yeah, there's always a choice, right? There's always a choice. You can make. You go up to North Queensland, even if you go up, I think it's Cardwell or somewhere up near Hitchinbrook, and you could buy a business and run a boat out or do whatever. There's always a choice, but it's difficult to make that step. And I'm not saying I could do it tomorrow either, but
it's good in theory, isn't it?
In theory, but you got to always remember, right? You've got a choice. So if things are that bad, in the end, you can sit there and go, well, I can keep doing this forever, or make a change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we should go up north somewhere, get a studio, and then go off the grid. Just get enough to run this. Get a tourism, and we'll create a race up there, like the coast to coast.
Create a race, yeah. Well, we've got a race up there.
You have to dodge.
You got Triple R up there.
Yeah, Triple R now. Mountain biking.
What's Triple R?
Triple R is it's like Defiance, but mountain biking only.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's multi-stage. It used to go down the bump track into Port Douglas.
Bump track like into Port Douglas. It was like this old like logging track that they used to run. It's pretty fun.
Is it like a cross-country one, or is it like an enduro-style one?
Sort of a mix, eh?
So it used to be just point to point in one day. I think it used to maybe like 70k or so. And you started up on a property. It was literally like just walking cow tracks riding, so it was pretty rough riding. And then you got on the bump track's more like a forward driving track. It's pretty good. And then you finished along the beach at Port Douglas. So
nice.
It's you come off the range. I think now it's literally a 5-day race or something, and they do a section in Smithfield, so in the mountain bike trails, and maybe just the last days down Triple A. But there's always something around there.
There's something around that, and that's the exciting life you lead. You can just go, I'm going to do that this year, and decide what it is you're going to do. Have you missed out on any races because of this drama? Like, is there anything that got cancelled that you should have been doing by now?
We had, there was a couple of races, mainly just running races. There's one, like an old race we do called 6 Foot Track in the Blue Mountains.
Yep.
Funny enough, it was prior to this. It was because of originally it was the fires and the floods. So there's been so much stuff going on. And then the biggest running trail race in Australia is UTA.
Yep.
Again in the Blue Mountains, and they've just postponed that till October. So
bit more. Are you going to go and do it?
Yeah. The plan is to go and race still. So it was meant to be, I think, last weekend.
Bit more training. Bit of training time.
Training. I don't know if I need a bit more training.
Yeah, leave it to end of September and then give it a crack.
Just keep ticking along, eh?
Yeah, nice. Well, I really appreciate you coming in, mate. And like, I know you don't do a lot of these, and this is the last one you're ever doing. So nobody ask them to come in. So you have to feel like you're going everywhere else.
That's all good, mate. It was enjoyable.
We'll have you in again. I'd like to. It'd be cool to come in and chat. Like when you're in maybe a year or so, when you've got a few more races on your belt, we can chat about what it is you've been up to the last year, and I'm sure we got some other interesting stories.
Sweet.
Keep following.
It's good, man.
All the best. Thanks. Mate.